Hey Carlo,
Oh,
what about this lens?
what do we got? This could work.
Do it.
Cool. Welcome back to Camera West TV. My name is Carlo, and on today's episode of Thumbprints and Signatures, we're taking a look at the 50 f1 Noctilux. Made between 1975 to 2008, the 50 f1 Noctilux underwent several cosmetic changes as well as different lens coatings from its 30-plus year production period. This iteration of the Noctilux in particular was designed by Walter Mandler before its successor, the .95 Noctilux, was born. Due to early production problems with the spherical surfaces, Leitz was forced to find a new solution, and the answer was the famous Leitz glass dubbed 900430. This glass allowed Dr. Mandler to add one stop of light to the overall maximum aperture and create this lens using spherical surfaces for all the elements. This was Leica's fastest lens that performed exceptionally well at its lowest aperture, resulting in sharp, in-focus subjects juxtaposed to smooth and dreamlike bokeh. Even with subjects further away from the photographer, there is a clear separation between the subject and its background, both in daylight and at night. This lens really shines in the lowest of light conditions, allowing for more light to enter in the lens. With an aperture of f1, this lens requires a great deal of skill and practice to nail sharp focus in the rangefinder. Instead of wandering around downtown San Francisco in the usual style, I knew I wanted to make portraits with this lens. So luckily, my friends over at Bay Area Film hosted a photo walk last week, so I decided to take the SL2S as well as this lens and go make some portraits, and we get a little sneak peek at the SF film photo community. Alright, we are out here at the aquatic park. I don't have Alex to help me film today, so it's just going to be a one-man crew. I have the 51 Noctilux with the SL2S, so we're going to make some portraits at this photo walk today and meet some of the San Francisco Bay Area photo community. Should be fun. And walking over there right now, they're all kind of like right there. It's a little bright out today. Pretty good turnout. Gonna walk up on some of the main people.
I live in Roswell.
I saw you.
You're on the YouTube. What's up, dude? You're gonna be on the YouTube.
Sick, right on, dude.
Yeah, dude. What's up, dude? How are you?
How you doing?
Pretty good. It's a pretty good turnout.
Yeah.
You guys probably have like
I don't know. I mean, it's still early, so we'll see. We'll see. It should be good though. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for
So
coming out.
yeah. Dang. So my goal for the photo walk was to make some portraits of my friends as well as meet some new people and take some full body shots as well as close-ups to show you how this lens renders subjects at f1. Unfortunately, I didn't get too much footage at the photo walk, so hopefully these images make up for the rest of the experience. Even though I missed perfect focus on some of the portraits, the shallow depth of field on the full body shots isolated each photographer from their respective backgrounds, pulling all attention to them. This look shares some similarities with the depth of field you get from medium and large format photography. Also, that is up for debate. However, when I moved closer for tighter portraits, the f1 Noctilux showcased just how precise this lens can be when focusing. Anything that's not on the focus plane of this lens begins to gradient into smooth bokeh. Even with the help of an EVF with capture assistance, it was still pretty hard to nail precise focus as it's very sensitive and precise to what you're focusing on. And it was a little windy, so any movement back and forth at the very slightest bit will result in a shift in your focus plane. Outside of making portraits with the f1 Noctilux, I decided to use it on the M11 and walk around Fort Mason around evening, nighttime, just to see what kind of sceneries I can get. Plus, with a name like Noctilux, how can we not use it at night? Depending on where you choose to focus, you can play with the layers and perspective of the image, similar to a selective focus effect. Once top down, this lens is extremely sharp throughout the frame and performs much like most modern Leica lenses. While going through these photos, I made minor edits to contrast, exposure, and white balance, but left the colors relatively untouched. The colors this lens produced are soft, yet saturated, but not quite punchy. Even though this lens has some pretty strong imperfections such as fall off, vignetting, chromatic aberrations, and coma, it's not too much of an issue, and it kind of pulls your attention to your subjects, kind of like a tunnel vision effect, so all focus is on them, or whatever you focus on. What I really like about this lens is the visual signature you get from it. There's nothing like an f1 Noctilux, and even all the different versions of the f1 Noctilux have their subtle differences, and some people even prefer different versions to the one that I'm holding. The look that I got from this lens is truly something special, and I can see why a lot of people want to use this lens for very specific uses. And lastly, the unique lens signature could be seen as a pro or a con. For me, it's a pro. I usually like using older lenses on digital sensors to kind of soften them up and kind of give them a unique look that's more signature to the lens. And I think that this lens in particular adds a creative, new, refreshing take that you normally wouldn't be able to get through normal lenses or even with the amount of editing you do in post. I found myself shooting this lens wide open, and even when I stopped it down, the effects that you get from the Noctilux look start to kind of vanish. And so it kind of served no point in stopping down because I wouldn't want to walk around shooting street photography with something this big or this heavy. Overall, I recommend this lens to any photographer looking to step up their portraits or looking for something to challenge themselves creatively. Even the way this lens renders spatial depth can add a lot to your landscapes or environmental portraits. Using this lens at f1 was definitely a creative challenge for me, as I'm used to only shooting at 1.4, and I never thought that the difference would be that much, but seeing the results and using it with two different cameras and two different focusing systems, it provides such a different experience that makes you more involved in the image making process. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for street photography, but it's not impossible. If you're able to zone focus at f1, I applaud you because that's really hard, and the amount of accuracy that you need takes a lot of time to acquire. But if you find yourself shooting top down most of the time, then this lens isn't really that big of an appeal to you. I don't think that getting this would justify having the lens. So this wraps up another episode of Thumbprints and Signatures. I'd like to personally thank Bay Area Film for hosting such a great photo walk. It was a great community event and I got to meet so many amazing people. And thank you to all the photographers that let me take their portraits. Y'all are awesome. I put all their respective handles for Instagram in their portraits, so please go give them a follow, a like, and go support them. And as always, I'm Carlo from Camera West TV. I'll see you next time.